welcome to the program. And while Tony Abbott was locked in marathon-length talks with the three rural-based independents to try to secure their support for a minority coalition government, Julia Gillard got Tasmanian Independent Andrew Wilkie's signature on the bottom line this afternoon, bringing her total guaranteed vote in the Parliament to 74, compared to Tony Abbott's claim on 73. Having already reached a deal with the Greens for the vote of their new MP from Melbourne, Labor now needs to win over just two of the three still uncommitted independents, Tony Windsor, Bob Catter and Rob Oakeshott, to reach the required 76 seats in a Parliament of 150, while the coalition needs all three. And that assumes Mr Abbott can count on the new Western Australian Independent Nationals MP, Tony Crook, who warned today he may yet sit on the crossbenches. I'll be speaking with Andrew Wilkie shortly, but first, here's our political editor, Heather Hewitt.
I have decided to support the ALP.
Before a mass of cameras and journalists at Parliament House late this afternoon, Tasmanian Independent Andrew Wilkie made the declaration Julia Gillard and Tony Abbott had been sweating on for days.
A future Gillard Labor government will have my vote on matters of supply. Furthermore, I will not support any unwarranted no confidence motion brought to bear against a future Gillard Labor government.
After several hours of negotiations with Tony Abbott and Julia Gillard spread over several days, the caretaker Prime Minister emerged the winner.
I have judged that it is in fact the ALP that best meets my criteria, that the next government must be stable, must be competent and must be ethical. There are many areas of the ALP's policy platform that I have concerns about, and I've made that quite clear already. For instance, their refugee policy. But I will take every opportunity during the term of that government to champion the issues I care about and am concerned about and try and bring about reform that way.
I thank Mr Wilkie for the decency and diligence with which he has negotiated this agreement. I thank Mr Wilkie for bearing in mind at all stages the national interest.
And no wonder, especially when Andrew Wilkie is exerting this kind of moral pressure on the three rural independents who are yet to make up their minds.
The ALP now has 74 members of the House of Representatives supporting it. Only one off 75, two off the magical 76. I would hope that by deciding fairly early, as I've done, I would hope that this sends a signal to the other three independents.
Labor reckons it now has the edge to form a minority government. But of course, we're yet to see whether the three rural independents will in any way be influenced by Andrew Wilkie's decision. The deal Julia Gillard pulled off with Andrew Wilkie, predictably enough, came at a price. Money for the Hobart Hospital and action on pokies. The government will bring forward $1.8 billion of health and hospital funds to include Hobart Hospital.
In these circumstances, I've agreed with Mr Wilkie that some monies will be made available urgently, $100 million, to enable construction work to start on the Women's and Children's Hospital, and that an application on behalf of the Royal Hobart Hospital will be considered in accordance with the proper evaluation criteria of the Health and Hospitals Fund.
I have great concerns about the public health care system in southern Tasmania and the state of the Royal Hobart Hospital in particular. But it would be reckless of me only to have been involved in a negotiation of money for that one hospital.
And that's pretty much how Andrew Wilkie justified knocking back the $1 billion offered by Tony Abbott to completely rebuild the hospital. He argued that since his seat had been held by Labor for more than 20 years, his electorate would prefer him to support a minority Labor government. He was also happier with Labor's promise to introduce a high-tech smart card on pokie machines to identify problem gamblers.
We will work with states and territories to deliver this reform. But I've also agreed with him that the Commonwealth will act if the agreement of states and territories is not forthcoming.
What also appeared to be a factor in Andrew Wilkie's decision to go with Labor was the release of Treasury analysis of coalition costings, showing they could be out by up to $11 billion.
I did take that into consideration. I thought that was unacceptable that the alternative government of this country would be out by so far. And it did strip away a little bit of the confidence I had developed in Tony Abbott.
They have done the nation a great service by ensuring that Mr Abbott has finally had his election policies costed by Treasury. We know he had 11 billion reasons why he wanted to keep those costings secret.
The Coalition had refused to give their costings to Treasury during the campaign, but submitted them post-election because the Independent MPs demanded it. This morning, Tony Abbott, with his Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey and Finance spokesman Andrew Robb, called a news conference to defend their figures and try to head off any damage in their negotiations with the three rural independents.
We can and will deliver substantially larger surpluses than the Labor Party.
Our numbers are emphatically right. We stand by them and we will deliver them if we get into government.
There are a whole lot of issues in play here and an at times arcane argument about costings is by no means the most important.
The opposition appeared to be basing its argument over the Treasury's analysis on this claim.
From our perspective, there are decisions that we are have a difference of opinion with Treasury about.
What it established was there was not an error of costing, there was a difference of opinion on, in one case or two cases.
These are not errors. These are mistakes and deliberate dishonesty.
The crucial question now, as the opposition knows full well, is what impact the Treasury analysis might have on the three rural independents. The initial signs this morning weren't exactly encouraging for Tony Abbott.
Well, I think that's the inference you can draw, that they had real problems themselves with the veracity of their numbers under a Treasury account.
I certainly am one who trusts Treasury. I respect the eminence of the Ken Henrys and the David Tunes, and in the end, we've all got to trust someone.
Yes, but who are they going to trust to lead a minority government is what everyone wants to know, and there's still no answer. From 7 o'clock this morning, they held talks with senior ministers in the Cabinet room, which, by the way, Julia Gillard has willingly handed over for their use to receive briefings from department heads too. Throughout the afternoon, they were in Tony Abbott's office meeting shadow ministers. Julia Gillard is expected to meet them tonight to try to exert more pressure after the Wilkie announcement. Labor is now thinking it may have Bob Katter on side after Kevin Rudd had dinner with him in Canberra last night. But there's no sign yet of an announcement from any one of the three.
Political editor Heather Ewart, still on the guessing game.